like any sharp stuff, like pens and like, well, it's all gone. So like my tweezers and my hair straighteners and stuff, Mum took that because she thought I might like burn myself to death.
Welcome back, fans and newbies, to the Complete Guide to Horror podcast. Today, we're shit-talking Hostel, released in 2005, and the movie that upped the ante on gore, torture, and kills to tarnish an entire brand of new wave horror movies with a label that's hated, and that is torture porn. Now, personally, I think the term torture porn is unwarranted for most movies, but for Hostel, this is the exception.
You are the only exception.
Directed by Eli Roth, the movie focuses on a group of bratty, annoying piece of shits who get exactly what they deserve. The movie was a huge success and remains an often uncomfortable, unpopular part of the horror movie zeitgeist, with criticism directed to the graphic kill scenes, focus on sex and drugs in the first 40 minutes of the movie, and its cruel nature. It's also noted for being quite uneven, where the first half of the movie is more around their exploits in Amsterdam, and then the second half of the movie being full balls to the wall, just complete chaos. Coop, we'll start with you. Have you had the pleasure of seeing this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's torture porn. It's absolutely torture porn. It doesn't really hold up as a movie. You don't really care about a lot of the characters. I think in a lot of ways it's kind of deliberate, particularly the two, I guess you could call them the protagonists in the movie. They're kind of built up so you kind of don't care what happens to them. They're kind of like crappy people. And I think that's very deliberate in this movie. So then you're like, I kind of want to see these guys get fucked up. Overall, not a great movie. There is some cool gore in this. I think my favorites, and probably the one thing that stands out to me about the Hostel movies, is the Achilles heel, where that guy tells him, "Oh, well, you want to leave? You can. Oh, do you want to go? You can go." And he slices his Achilles and then can't get away. There's just something real grating about that kind of evil, which is kind of an ongoing theme with those movies. Good gore, but there's not really much else to it, I would say. The overall storyline idea with the elite hunting club is a good idea, but they don't really delve into it too much. Particularly in this movie, they get into it a little bit more in the second one, but there's not really enough to sort of drag you in, really, unless you just really like watching gore, which if you do, then you're going to love this movie.
It was somewhat misleading too, because I remember putting this movie on, when I was 15 maybe, and it felt like the first 45 minutes was just these dickheads running around Amsterdam being like, woo, yeah, America, woo! Yep. And it's like, when are we actually going to get to the part that I saw in the trailers or the part that I saw on the poster, which was supposed to be this horrifying torture chamber? So I was a bit confused when it was just, hey, they went to the red light district, which is nothing like the actual red light district in Amsterdam, first of all. Just, it felt so badly done. I don't know if it was on purpose to try and like make people think that Amsterdam is this type of location, or where they go to when, I can't remember if it's actually stated, were they in Bulgaria or Slovakia where the torture?
They go to Slovakia. I think they're initially in Amsterdam, and they get a train to Slovakia.
I felt like they could have done all the first 45 minutes condensed into 5-10 minutes of just, woo, Amsterdam, woo, we're Americans and we're loud and annoying. And they're like, that would have set it up for why you don't care if they live or die or whatnot.
Yeah.
But then there's this one shot in Hostel that sticks with me, and it's when the main protagonist gets dragged down the hallway and he sees into the rooms of what's happening to the other people. And it's like, oh shit, that's a bit, that's intense. Because
aren't they packing up the room? There's two guys in the room or something, packing up the room or something? Or was that later on? Sorry, I'm thinking something else.
No, I think
when he's getting dragged down, are you talking about when he gets dragged down and he sees, like, you get sort of like snippets of some of the other torture shit going on? Yeah.
That's the one part where I was like, oh, okay, this film is now starting to deliver on what it promises, which in all the marketing was all about, this is better than Saw, this is more torture, this is more blood guts, everything. So finally it delivered on that halfway through, but the first half left me wondering, what the fuck is this movie about? I'd say that the first half does leave a bit of a lingering effect on me. And just to divert for a minute, back in 2014, I went to Amsterdam and I completely forgot about Hostel, even though it was set in Amsterdam for the first 45 minutes of the movie. But I remember I got invited to a specific party and there was all these guys being like, yeah, we're just going to like drink alcohol and we're going to smoke weed and we're going to do this, right? Like very tame compared to what is also on offer in Amsterdam, where you can do like China white heroin and you can buy all these kinds of drugs from like the underground market. In my mind, I was like, oh yeah, like I'll go socialize with people in Amsterdam. That's what I'm here for. But then that movie stopped me from doing it. because I was like, I don't know these people.
Yeah,
like I know they're not going to torture me and drug me or whatever, but there's always like that stranger danger element that stuck with me because of this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, I've seen what happens with this. So I politely declined and it was fine. But sometimes I do think, oh man, maybe I should have just gone and like, I could have just been extra cautious, you know? I didn't have to necessarily outright say no. There's another part in the movie, which is what I would say is probably one of the more brutal torture scenes I've seen in like most horror movies, which is the blowtorch to the head. That thing that happens to the poor girl, I remember thinking, fuck, that's intense. But then, I don't know, I felt like they kind of went a bit too over the top where like they snip her eye and like all the ooze comes out.
Yeah,
I was like,
ridiculous.
I'm like, that kind of took me out of it. What could have been like really horrible was just like if I was at the cinema watching this, I would have been like, yeah, that's cool. But because I was at home, it's like, oh, okay, next, like, let's move on. I liked the suspense and the danger that was present in the second half where he was trying to escape the underground club. He was trying to make sure he came out of it alive, but I wasn't necessarily rooting for this character to survive. I didn't care at that point, but I was also having like a racing heartbeat being like, holy shit, what if I was in that situation? Like I'd want to make it out alive. But yeah, some of the writing left to be desired. I will say though, the blowtorch to the eye for me pales in comparison to the Achilles heel. That's something that I still look at and I'm like, fuck. Like, no matter how many times I think about it, it's just more things like that I think would have helped the movie sell more to the audience, but it did leave some to be desired.
Up until about a week ago, I hadn't seen Hostel in years and years because I'd never really come back to it. But like the two things that I do remember from that movie and watching it again were the two sort of standout moments for me was, the Achilles heel part, just how fucking evil that is. And when you mentioned with the blowtorch, but just sort of that part near the end where she kills herself in front of the train. Those are like the only two things that I remembered of just like how dark this movie got. And so I feel like those were two standout, like particularly hard-hitting parts of this movie for sure.
I have another little side story and it's so bad. So my older sister was watching the first Hostel movie years and years ago. And this is when my now 18-year-old brother, he was 3 years old, I think, at that point. And he had just started walking. So he was walking all over the place. He walked in at the part of Hostel where towards the end, the guy gets his fingers cut off and then like his throat slit and everything. You know, 3-year-old kid seeing that kind of violence, never going to go down well. He cried and he was inconsolable. And I remember being so angry at my sister, being like, why the fuck would you let a 3-year-old watch Hostel? And she was like, I didn't know he was in the room. I would have never let him watch it, blah, blah, blah. But it's funny because I talked to him about it now and he's like, I've never seen that movie. But then I'll be like, oh, do you want to watch it? And he's like, no.
Because he knows it's going to come flooding back and then he's going to have to go to therapy.
Yeah. But then this is a little bit of a sledge at my sister, but she does these things too where she thinks because we watched horror movies as kids, that like it's okay for like our little brother and our little sister to watch it. But my mum was the type of mum, you know, she always made sure the horror movies we watched weren't too scary or too violent or graphic like that. We would watch Halloween H2O when I was like 8 years old. But at the same time, she's not going to let me watch a hardcore Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Yeah.
So then my sister will do things where she's like, it's okay. Our 7-year-old little sister can watch Ouija Origin of Evil where it's like all about little girls getting killed and shit. And it's like, hey, maybe let's not watch that movie.
Yeah.
BP, did you have any thoughts on the first Hostel?
I've been overseas and I've been to different countries and I think it's just, I don't know, in that film, everyone's so friendly and that, like, you're in a foreign country, especially Europe. And I just think even when they get there and those girls are like, yeah, come to the pool or come to the sauna or whatever, they're like, oh, maybe. And I don't know if I'd be trusting anyone in that sort of setting. And even like the setup with the hotel clerk, that really geeky guy. Even that's just a bit sus. I didn't really warm to the movie that much. Like I watched it, can't really remember a lot from it. Yeah, I think like the poster was probably more gory than maybe what I expected in the film. And the film was just a bit meh to me. Maybe I expected more given sort of the history I've heard about Hostel, people talking about it. And when you mentioned about that Achilles heel, the first thing I thought of was House of Wax. which I'm pretty sure came
Yeah.
out about the same time, didn't it?
Yeah,
this
same
is
year.
still up
Same year.
in Cup. That's what I thought of when you said that. So I'm like, I don't know who did it first. It's coming back to me. One of the guys in it was sort of like, there was two like main guys, which were sort of like stereotypical jocks. And then there was that third friend. And the third friend was always a bit like, not shy, but wasn't understanding if he was maybe a virgin in the film or something. Because isn't there a scene where one of the girls is trying to like flirt with him and he looked really uncomfortable? It was like the blonde one. Am I thinking that? No.
Oh well, there was the two. There was some sub storyline about like, oh, you need to get over your ex-girlfriend, man. So there was the two American guys. The blonde guy was a bit shyer, and they had a guy that they'd met along the way who was German, I think.
Yeah, and then I was like, is there a gay?
He got picked off pretty early. That the German dude.
Wasn't he talking to him at the bar? And then I thought, is there like a gay thing going on here? I didn't know if I was not understanding something going on.
I'm not sure. He does end up sleeping with one of the prostitute chicks that lure them in.
Yeah, I didn't pick it up the first time I watched it when I was like 13, 14. But when I rewatched it recently, I thought, hey, maybe that was supposed to be like a gay storyline, but maybe the studio like interfered with the movie and said like, we can't do that because it might be seen as offensive, or it might be seen as, because like this is way back in 2005 where like conservatives ruled America. So they were like, we don't want to hear that gay shit. LGBT, I only know LGBT as lettuce, guns, bacon, tits, like, you know, that type of mindset back then, which is still somewhat pervasive now.
This is around the time Heath Ledger was getting squirted in the face with the water gun on the red carpet for being in Brokeback Mountain. So like, different time, funnily enough.
Yeah. But like you said, Justin, I do remember for like maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes of the first part, it was just really them walking around, and I'm like, okay, like looking at how much time's left on the movie, I was like 40 minutes. I'm like, are we going to get into something at this point, or like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
This is where. And I mean, in the cinema, this is like, it's a horror movie. It's sort of like make or break. You don't want to make it too long. You don't want to make it too short. But when you start getting over the halfway mark and you're sort of going like, okay, like, let's go. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's when you start worrying. Like, are they really going to cram in 30 minutes of like gore action right now with the credits?
Thanks, BP and Coop, for joining me. In our next episode, we discuss Hostel Part 2, the sequel released in 2007 that flips the script by focusing on women, and why the elite hunting squad operates, and why people choose to pay to torture.
You hear yourself talk? I might kill you tonight.
If you liked this episode, thanks fam. If you hated it, see you in the elite hunting club, you piece of shit. Bye.